Ms. Shuchi
Aggarwal.
Uh, Ms. Shuchi has 15 years of experience of applying design thinking and leadership management principles across various industries from Fortune 50 to startups, both in USA and India. She is a leadership, change management, and design thinking coach. Also, she is a chief strategy officer and design head at E2 Logi Software Solutions Private Limited. Prior to this, Mesuchi lived in USA and was working at IBM headquarters in New York as a part of their leadership development program. Ms. Suchi has MBA from University of Chicago, Booth School of Business. She has studied design from NID Ahmedabad and economics from SRCC Delhi. Uh, this is a very small introduction about Ms. Suchi, a very gorgeous lady. Welcome, ma'am, for this session, and the forum is to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. And I'm really enjoying the World Transformation Day conference happening today. So I really welcome you all, everyone who's here listening to the live conference for today's session on design thinking for leaders to succeed in uncertainty. You all would agree that we are living in times of unprecedented change. So we've heard this growing up, that change is the only thing which is constant, right? But right now, the pace of change is dramatic. It's mind-boggling how the change is happening continuously. There was World War I earlier, there was World War II, but now there is pandemic at one time, there is technological disruption at another time. Your competition comes up with a strategic disruption at another time. There is sometimes an earthquake. There is just so much which is happening, right? So what are the changes? What are the things which are happening around you, which is impacting you as a leader? We all are leaders, as was said earlier. So it's not just that we are leading our startups and our businesses and our corporates and enterprises. We are also leaders of our families. We are also leaders of our own careers. So what all is impacting you? Do put it wherever you are from, put it in your chat box, and just look at the amount of change which we are grappling with. But still, pause and think, why is it? Why is it that despite all these changes, despite all these uncertainties, some corporates, some startups, and some leaders come up successful? They come out of all these problems happily with flying colors, and others simply fail in the same situation. Why is it that? Why is it that despite the dot-com bubble bust of 2000, Steve Jobs was able to come up with iPod, the first generation iPod, which became a huge success over the years? Why is it that despite 2008-2009 financial crisis, Jan Koum and Brian Acton were able to come up with WhatsApp? And we all know how well WhatsApp has done throughout the world. Billions of users are using it day in and day out. So why is it in the same situation where people are committing suicides, where corporates are falling away, large companies like Lehman was just bankrupt? Why is it that some companies, some people, some leaders are able to succeed in the very same situation? So today's talk, I'll be telling you about how these leaders successfully use a modified design thinking model despite the uncertainties that have plagued the world and their colleagues. So let me share my screen. Successful leaders recognize very fast when a shock event happens. So what's a shock event? You can again write in the chat box from wherever you're looking at this conference. So shock event gets triggered by unexpected events. So when nobody is looking, that's when a shock event happens. It leads to unprecedented uncertainty and volatility. And it is usually very widespread, impacting across nations. Being human, it is our intolerance of uncertainty that results in fear and stress, leaving everyone directionless and confused. But not the very few successful leaders. Why? Why is it that those very few successful leaders are able to get through with flying colors? Because they see these shock events. They are able to recognize these shock events. And they treat them like gravity. What is gravity? We all know what is gravity, right? There's gravity on Earth, and as a result, we walk. We can't fly. But do we question why there is gravity on Earth? Do we question, oh my God, do we get anxious about it? We just consider it as a situation, as a circumstance, as part of our lives. Successful leaders know that whenever the shock event is, be it market meltdown, be it a financial crisis, be it a competitive disruption, or a government policy for that matter, the only way forward is to see that shock event, this red dot, which you see on the screen, the shock event, see it as gravity and choose to accept it. That's step one. Choose to accept it. Move beyond the fears, freeze, and fight or flight response, which most human beings, usual human beings, have in such situations. They develop behavioral flexibility. That is the key to accepting it. And mind you, behavioral flexibility is an acquired skill. It is not like they don't fear or they don't have doubts, but they choose behavioral flexibility. Now, what is behavioral flexibility? For example, when you're using Google Maps, we all drive, right? And you're using Google Maps, and Google Maps take you're following that route, and you reach some place where the road is blocked. Now, what do? Do you get anxious? Do you get all frozen up? No, we just press the button called reroute and we move on. We take a different route and reach the destination wherever we have to reach. But the same behavioral flexibility becomes very difficult to achieve in case of these shock events and life-changing events, which can have far large impact on our lives. That's when we lose this ability, which we naturally all human beings have. But what do the successful leaders do? Instead of pouring their energy into getting stuck into these shock events related issues or in this gravity type situations, they pour their emotion into the next step, which is empathizing with their stakeholders, be it their customers or their employees or both. Every leader has his own style, but the successful leader might not have the perfect vision of what needs to be done in such situation of a shock event. Crisis always tests the visions, but they apply a human-centric approach. They empathize. What is empathy? Please write what you understand by empathy in the chat box, wherever you are, or wherever you're watching it from. What they do, for example, with respect to their employees, they'll provide a safe environment. They'll almost hold their employees the way parents hold their children. They'll hold them together, they'll act fast, they'll communicate effectively. Instead of saying that all's good and everything is fine, or saying, oh, we are lost, they help others, they help the employees make sense of the distress. Think of a CEO who is in a severe downtown, and he reassures his employees that we do have the resources to carry on for a couple months. He helps them interpret the revenue data and gives them direction on how to manage their current clients and how to build new clients despite the uncertainty. The successful leaders, while following this process of empathy, they promote dialogue that lets different people come together and participate together in decisions and in adapting to new challenges together. They dispel rumors. They encourage and protect everyone's participation. Think of Southwest Airlines. The employees over there consider Southwest Airlines as their second home. And that is a very, very big reason why this company has been able to deliver profits for 35 long years, despite being in an industry where most of the airlines are not giving profit. Empathy also includes its customers. Think of Fred Smith. So Fred Smith is the owner of FedEx, which is today synonymous with courier service, for the premium courier service. But he started the company when there was an oil embargo, wherein oil prices, the fuel prices went way high up. All the oil companies got together and just pushed the price high. But he focused on his customers. He focused on his mission, wherein he knew that his customers, their businesses depended on overnight deliveries, and he continued to provide that service. So that's empathy. Now, in real world problems, we'll move to the next step. In real world, the problems do not appear like it does. It's not like a question in a paper. It's not like Fred Smith knew, all right, this is the problem that I have to resolve. It's not so plain and simple. For example, Steve Jobs did not know that, he has to create an iPod. What you do after empathy, after empathizing with your stakeholders, is you reframe the problems. Successful leaders, after developing the right organizational culture with empathy and accepting, they are able to together discover and frame the right problem. For example, let's look at Steve Jobs. Out of his empathy for his customers, he understood that music has extreme soothing capabilities, especially in times of recession. This was the dot-com bust of 2000. Now, how did he reframe the situation? He reframed it that how could Apple make their customers' lives happier? How can they have music on the go? And how can they have as large a variety of music on the go as they want? So once you're able to frame the problem, that's when you can look at ideating and go on to the next step. It's the accepting, empathizing, building the right organizational culture, and that leads to discovery. So these are all interconnected steps, and one leads to the other. Once you're able to find the gap, that's when you move to the ideation, prototyping, and test. Ideation is where you come up with different ideas. Prototyping is you put that idea into a minimum viable product, and you test it whether it's working. It's better to fail fast, fail soon. So process of understanding how to meet needs of people often turns itself inwards. When you are discovering the problems, you turn inwards and it reveals some of the deadliest organizational gaps and why they continue to persist. New challenges do not have any history. Given the speed of change today, extrapolating from past is not a solution. It could really be disastrous if somebody tries to do what Steve Jobs did for himself, for his own company. Why? Because your stakeholders are different. Your situation is different. Your competition is different. So design thinking is an action-oriented, learning by doing process. After framing the problem, you ideate with your team. It's not a single person job. That's why we have facilitators like me who organize these workshops. You have a third person perspective and you have all the key stakeholders within the same room, and you all in fact, ideate together. Create minimum viable product. Create a prototype. Test it. Fail fast. And it's a reiterative process. So you keep ideating and testing. You keep ideating and testing. It's not like, Steve Jobs created the perfect iPod in one go. No. So the successful leaders understand the importance of experimentation. For example, during the Great Depression of 1930s, that was way before all the 2000 busts and stuff like that, it was difficult for most consumer product companies. P&G, Procter & Gamble, which is a very big company now, was facing the same situation. consumers were cutting down their purchases, and P&G's inventories of all the products which they thought that they'll sell were building up, they were piling up. But they followed the accept, empathize, discover, reframe process. And they found out that even in depression, people want to use soap. They want to continue using soap. Why? Because soap is relatively a cheap product. And there's basic hygiene which people would still like to, it's just needed. It's like a basic need. And what did they do? They did not just sideline it saying, oh, soap is so cheap. No, they did not. Since they had the right leadership and organizational structure in place, they ideated, prototyped, and tested what? The concept of investing more during the Great Depression in a new marketing channel. They sponsored daily radio shows amid which was set up for the radio, but they aimed at homemakers, which was their primary customer base. So they were able to empathize, recognize which stakeholder to impress upon. So P&G debuted its own cereal, Ma Perkins, and women around the country in the US fell in love with the tale of the kind widow. The program was so successful that not only did they come out of depression hale and happy, they started following the same methodology for many other projects. For many of the products, they started using the same marketing channel. So the way they say necessity leads to invention, but you have to get into that mindset, and design thinking provides you a very good, dynamic, human-centric, constructive, experimental process-based ideas, which reduces risks and takes the enterprise creativity to a completely new level. Especially in the workshops that I take, these are customized. As I said, you cannot just follow what was done previously and go ahead with the same thing which was done earlier. You can't read books and apply design thinking. It's in action. It requires empathy. It requires reframing. And there's no one solution that fits all. So just to reiterate all the steps, first you recognize the shock event. You accept it like gravity on earth. Develop behavioral flexibility. Step 2, pour your emotion into empathizing with your stakeholders. Step 3, discover and define, reframe the problem, followed by ideation, prototyping, testing, failing, and ideating again. And we all are leaders. We all are leaders, not just of our companies and startups. We all are leaders of our own careers, of our own lives. So this process very much works very well, even for your own lives, how to design a good life, how to design a purposeful life. You can apply design thinking to even that. So really look forward to collaborating with you further. You can please feel free to connect with me if you would like similar workshops and trainings for your businesses or employees or anybody. I'm there on LinkedIn, and you can email me, and my WhatsApp number is also here. So thank you all for your time, and I hope I added value to your leadership goals and transformation journey. Thank you so much.
Definitely, madam. It was a very useful talk from you. I just remember one quotation from Mr. Shiv Kera, that is, winners won't do the same things, they will do the things differently. So that is what I felt from your talk, that it is very much necessary that we should be a unique in compared to others. Like, so it was a wonderful talk, and I think all the participants who have participated now are really thoroughly enjoyed your session. And thank you very much, ma'am, for a wonderful talk. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for the wonderful talk.
Well, Lakshmi ma'am, can we go ahead with the next resource person who is going to speak? Can you
Next
just
speaker is Mr. Manoj Shah. Before his speech, we will have some. Ganesh, you are new for this, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. See, the World Transformation Day is being celebrated on first week of April every year.
Madam,
On
please
this
put it on
occasion,
full
we are
screen.
all.
Please put it on slide mode.
Sorry, sir.
Please put it on slide mode.
Full screen.
Slideshow mode.
No, cannot do that. No, sir, I couldn't do that.
It's okay. Continue, madam.
Ma'am, you can click on slideshow, which is there on the top.
Okay. We are on this platform. We are talking about very 75 plus speakers are talking on this platform regarding the relationship, regarding the health, wealth, relationship, spirituality, and leadership. And this oh, celebration we are having on 2 days, 3rd and 4th, today and tomorrow, from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. on both the days. So, okay, we have a health group and spirituality session, relationship, leadership, wealth, and business session. This is organizing team and MCs and hosts. Okay. Sir, let us go for another next speaker.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely, we can welcome the next speaker of this session, please.